You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time to rock out with episode 2 of your bi-weekly options extravaganza, known as the Option Block, what some outlets choose as their favorite options podcast on the planet. Hey, we don't judge. We produce a bunch of them. As long as you like and listen to them all, we're happy. My name, of course, is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting, at least we tend to think of it that way, the Options Insider Radio Network. Of course, a lot of you listening on demand. We love you all, however you get the shows. If you're listening on demand, you like what you hear, we just ask you rate and review wherever you get this show. So it could be in the individual Option Block feed if you listen that way. If that's the way you listen, though, you should make sure you listen to the whole network. You're missing out on a whole bunch of content. You can do it on the full network feed, wherever you get these shows. Of course, you can always do it even where you get our app. A lot of you like to listen via our app. So if you get it in the iOS or Google app stores, you can leave your reviews there as well. All of that translates into new folks discovering the content all the time. And of course, if you want to turn it up to 11, you want to get exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. All you on-demand folks, out of luck, unless you go to theoptionsinsider.com/secret club. That'll get you access to the Pro podcast feed. Then you can live on demand all you like with shows like Pro Q&As, as well as, of course, Options Oddities. And hey, if you want to join us live for this show, for everything else we do throughout the week, you can do that over there, theoptionsinsider.com/secret club. Almost time. We're coming up to the end of the month. So it's almost time to choose our winner chicken dinner for the Pro Trading Crate giveaway for March. So if you guys have not joined the Secret Club yet, get in there. The clock is ticking to win the fabulous prizes. So keep an eye out. Hold up that golden ticket. You never know if you're going to be the winner. And we've sent out some cool stuff. I'm looking at a mountain of cool stuff in the corner of the studio right now. It's going to go out to someone. Maybe it'll be you. theoptionsinsider.com/secret club. And let's keep on rolling. Let's see who's joining us today. Unfortunately, they won't win any fabulous prizes except for the joy they receive from basking in my presence. Let's go out first to the uncle list of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. A, welcome back to the program. And B, how joyous has it been for you this week, sir, to bask in my presence, not once, not twice, but thrice, sir?
Oh, it's such a joy. It's a joy beyond words, Mark.
I can hear the joy percolating in your voice, sir, the effervescence that is Uncle Mike. And then we go out to the land where effervescence goes to die. Yes, the shores of Maine, where everything's dark, everything's stormy, it's always overcast. And you know what? He's a lucky fellow because he usually gets to bask in my presence at least twice in the week. Sometimes, if he's lucky, if he pops up on Ball Views, maybe thrice as well. So maybe he'll have a 3-time winner himself as well. He is the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the program. I asked you that same question. How much of a joy is it for you to once again bask in my presence, sir?
It is the joy of living a clean life, a good life. That's what it is.
That's your reward.
Very celebratory thing.
That's the reward
Very
for living a clean life. You get to bask in my presence as we all bask in the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading, what is lighting it up out there on our screens, and, of course, the old Trading Block portion of the show where we can't really prepare for it too much ahead of time, listeners. Here we're just tweaking our numbers as we kick off the segment. Let's dive into what's lighting it up out there on the screens as we are seeing a wee bit of red percolating through the old screens today. The Dow and the NASDAQ both off 0.5% or a little more. NASDAQ threatening about 0.6%. The S&P not quite at that 0.5% level, pretty close, about 0.45 or so out there. So all of them kind of hanging out down there to the dark side. Maybe some concerns weighing on things out there. Crude, of course, interesting story. Are we going to tap into our strategic reserves? What impact can that even have? OPEC meeting today. That's a big deal for the crude space. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later on today with the one and only Dan Gramza. He's always fun to talk about that kind of stuff with. So that'll be fun. Join us for TWIFO in a little bit over an hour. If you're listening live, you can just hang out in there. We'll be back with the show live. If you're listening after the fact, just hit next. You'll get it on your podcast device of choice. And, of course, that means most of our vol friends, they were selling off. They still are, but they're starting to firm up a little bit now. Let's get on out to the land of Vixx, where as we kicked off the show, Vixx was down about almost exactly 2 points. Then as we kicked off the show, it had gotten about 0.5 point back. So it was about 20.25 when we kicked off the show. That puts it down about 1.5 points. Like I said, it was down about 2 points right before showtime. VVIX also getting a little bit frothier. Was at about a 108. Now as we kick off the show at about a 110. So that's down 6 points from where it was this time last show. VXX at about 25.5. That puts it down about 1.5 points from Monday's show. UVXY was getting into perilous territory. Was at about 12.5 when we were coming into the start of the show, a little bit before it. It has ticked up now to almost 12.90, so getting some of that back. So it was down about 1.75. Now it's down right around 1.5, 1.4 points. Of course, if you know UVXY, you've been trading it for a while, once you start getting to that or anywhere near that 10 strike, that's where things start to get a little bit wonky. That's also where they usually start to consider reverse splitting it. So I know we've had the once and future and present Dr. Vixx on Follow Views in this show in the past, and he's expressed many times when UVXY gets down to around that 10 level, that's when he starts backing off because it gets weird. And we are starting to see some of that weirdness, perhaps, again, flirting back up now right around 12.90, so getting a little bit back. We'll see. If we get another pop in UVXY, then all this talk could be moot. They start shelling reactors again over there in Ukraine or something along those lines. And again, all this talk of vol eroding will be a non-story, but we'll get the split we need, a reverse split we need but just from the market. We don't need to do anything out there. And vol Q was at about 23.25. Vol Q, of course, the NASDAQ vol. That puts it down about 1.25 points. Of course, as we've been talking here, it has ticked up about 0.5 point. It's up to about 23.75 now, which puts it down about 0.75 point from where it was this time last week. So a lot of table setting vol starting to firm up a little bit. We'll see if we can get back to unched even by the end of the show as we go around the horn. There's red on the screen. That means we have to start with the rockingest of lobsters and his best friend, his alter ego, Volman. Perhaps his only friend. He is out there in the hinterlands, after all, listeners. Mr. Rock Lobster, what are you and Volman keeping an eye on today, sir?
Well, before I talk about vol, I have to talk about Portillo's hot dogs.
Portillo's. How did that?
Portillo's. I know it's Portillo's, but I'm from California, so I'm going to say Portillo's. Because
no one sells it
Portillo's. But Portillo's.
Even in California, they don't call it Portillo's.
Yeah, I know. So Portillo's. So I got a gift pack from one of my students.
Wow, that's a nice student.
Pack of hot dogs.
That's a nice student.
So
did he forget my address? Is that what he did?
I apparently got the buns, the dogs, the mustard, the little spicy stuff you on it, and the relish and the peppers. Like the Portillo's hot dog, just like I remember it from way back when. And so I'm asking everybody, like, I figured these are all for me, right? because nobody in the house, like nobody, there's people who are like, nobody wants hot dogs. So I make a hot dog, and then somebody tastes it, and they're like, this is an awesome and they ate all my hot dogs. 10 gone. My whole
you didn't get any of them?
Blissful experience. I figure I'm going to get one a day for a week. I'm just going to go full Portillos for every day for the week. I'm in. Nope.
So that was your first mistake, revealing the Portillo's hot dogs to the rest of the family. That's something you keep in like the corner of the freezer or something to yourself. That's just for your own devices, sir. So
I'm just fair warning to listeners. If you order the Portillos with I'm always going to call Portillos, with all the fixings, don't tell anybody.
Has this prompted you to become a Portillo stockholder? They are public now.
I am. I'm looking at it. I swear I got it queued up on my screen because the stock was like a high of 55
I remember when Sebastian was all in my face because he bought it at 29. He's like, I got it at 29, and boo-boo to you. And it was trading close to it was in the 40s, I believe, at the time. Of course, now you can get all you want for $24.43, sir.
Yeah, I know. However, I think this is it's you know what it is? It's like every chain has to have a hook, and just the Chicago, that kind of downtown food in Chicago is it's not something you probably should eat every day, but when the urge is there, you got to have it. So anyway,
of course, you've listened to Uncle Mike. He thinks it's a place you go to get burgers. He's the only person in the world I know who gets burgers at Portillo's. I didn't even know they had burgers.
I like myself the Chicago dog. It's hard to beat it.
I will say, next time you come to Chicago, spend some time at Portillo's. Get yourself the rib dinner. It's pretty darn good.
Really?
You gotta wait 40 minutes for it, but it's worth it.
I think it's hard for me to go there and not get the hot dog, I have to admit. Although this little happy box they send you is quite nice, I'm just saying. Vol, that's where we were.
Is the show about something besides Portillo's hot dogs? I forgot.
Yes, exactly. So, but it is. I haven't bought it yet, but I will. I'm going to buy a little bit of stock. So,
by the way, before we get off of that, our chat is telling me they have a fish sandwich now in Portillo's. What? Fish sandwich?
Really?
Oh, that sounds A, awful, and B, hey, good. I guess it may be a Lent thing. I don't know, but wow.
I guess a good for Lent thing.
So as shocked as I was by the hamburgers, I am now double shocked by the fish sandwich.
I can't speak for any of that. I'm just hot dog, pure hot dog. All right. So vol, what I would say is we have had 10 days of up. Look at every Q stock, big Q stock, blah, 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 all that up. End of the quarter today. All of the darlings, I would like Google's down a little bit, Apple's down a little bit, Amazon's down a little bit of a bid for vol. I would not say it's a big bid for vol. It's just kind of one of those days where it's like, okay, the momentum is done, right? So you had the momentum off the bottom. Now where do we go? So I think this part of this is kind of waiting for what's going on. I think a typical pullback day, nothing just because we've had all that, I think we kind of got loaded into the fact that there was going to be a ceasefire and some of the stuff like this, and it didn't really happen. So there's more talks, there's more brokering, there's arguing about paying for natural gas and rubles and euros and, more bickering and stalemate and stuff like that. So I think the market just took a little breather. So you get a little bit of a move in VIX and off of, what was pretty much the low tick, I think, yesterday. We traded in the 18 handle. So I have a good shot at the crystal ball this week. I'm within range. So, but unless something kind of like weird ball drops, you got a split coming now. Tesla split. We had that run on that, right? You had a extra run because Google's supposedly going to split, Amazon's going to split. The market, for whatever reason, they love stock splits. So I think that could be some latent bullishness, or just for whatever reason, we're going to buy them down the road. It's just not happening today for sure. So, but from a vol, you still got like that kind of healthy contango. And from what I can see, So vol man, yeah. And it's like, so the 9-day vol really hasn't moved from yesterday. So even though VIX might be getting a little rosier, like the short-term vol really isn't going up. So the market does not care a whole lot, although we've been in a vol contraction mode for about a week and a half, 2 weeks almost. And it's kind of stuck. It's here. Okay. It's like, it's sort of like, now where do we go? And I think that's what we have. So without, earnings are going to be coming out soon. There's not a whole lot of catalyst going on in the next 2 weeks. The Fed's got rates raising for as far as the eye can see. The yen's getting smashed a little bit. So nothing to move the needle. I haven't closed. I've opened several trades today, but I have not closed any trades today at all. So that gives you an idea how there's just not a lot moving. So it's not a bad day, just nothing moving enough to close anything. So
unless you're looking to leg into some 1x2s and hood, then that thing's moving. But we'll get to that.
They wouldn't give them to me.
Really?
Like I couldn't get them for a credit. I tried for 2 days.
Oh,
I'm like,
that was my thing. I did actually pay a couple of cents for one of them. I did because I was in the middle of a show. I was like, I don't have time to babysit this. So I just paid a couple of cents just to get it done.
You couldn't get it for a credit. It was
no, they were I tried a few times myself because I don't like paying for those either. And if you don't know what the hell we're talking about, listeners, just tune into Oddities tomorrow. TheOptionInsider.com/secret club. Heard 1x2s. Are they back? Are we back to the dance of hood? Which, by the way, how ridiculous was it that the stock pops 25% on the announcement of they're going to extend trading hours unilaterally? Well, that's great. Broker can do whatever the hell they want. The exchanges have to kind of play ball with you to make that make sense. And they still have their regular hours. So Robinhood's open a couple more hours. Great. Doesn't really mean a heck of a lot. That did kind of surprise me a little bit.
It's giving back $2 to that. So I guess I should just forget it and just buy the stock at $11 or something. But
what fun is that?
I know. So I'm trying, and I'm like, I'm not going to be more aggressive. I'm doing the overbee. I'm waiting until the thought leaves because I know I'm going to have a good opportunity.
I think I paid a whopping 2 cents or something. So I had to do it. I know it stuck in my craw a little bit too because I definitely prefer a credit. But I got shows to do and trades to talk about. So I got to have some trades on. So the 2 cents. It was an investment in content. We'll get to that more tomorrow. Let's see what Uncle Mike is investing in content right now because he's producing a whole heck of a lot of it when he's not talking to us. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what's lighting up your tape on a distinctly non-Uncle Mike type of day?
I don't know if it's a distinctly non-Uncle Mike type of day. I mean, you got to buy dips, don't you?
You're selling a bunch of puts to the downside. Is that what you're doing? Just blasting away at garbage puts?
No, I'm actually not doing anything right now.
So you're a liar is what you're telling me.
No, I think that with where we're going with it, I agree with Andrew. This is just a pullback day. I mean, we're down just under 0.5% in the S&P 500. So that's really not a lot of movement to speak of, so to speak. So I think that that's just kind of where it's at right now. Few buyers in the 10-year note. So we're getting a little bit of a rally there. And I think for now, we're just kind of waiting and seeing what the next headline's going to get us. And we're also waiting for earnings season. And I think not to be a spoiler alert for Around the Block, I think we're kind of waiting on non-farm tomorrow, too. So I think this is just very much and so we wait type of day in the marketplace today.
Well, you don't have to wait any longer, listeners, for what's lighting it up out there, such as it is. Let's break it down for you, listeners. Let's start in Vixx land. Vixx kind of doing a whole heck of a lot of nothing, which, as we have discussed before, on days when VIX is kind of gently drifting down, you don't usually see a ton of paper. Maybe that will change now that maybe the vol is kicking into another gear here. Let's see. It was at 170,000 and it's still pretty much right there, about 175,000 right now. So not blowing the doors off, but also it's not nothing either. The ADV has ticked up a little bit, threatening that 600K level again, up to 590. It was around 575, I believe, on our last show. So it has ticked up a little bit. So VIX is putting up some paper this week. SPY at about 3 million. So that's pretty much close to almost exactly half of its ADV right now. You might be saying, wait a minute, the SPY ADV is much higher. No, that SPY ADV has fallen off a cliff. It's down pretty much 500,000 contracts. It was around 6.75 million. Now it's about 6.25 million. So 500,000 contracts a day coming off the table in SPY right now. So things a little quiet out there in SPY, even though it's putting up some numbers today. So maybe they could change that. The S also putting up some numbers today. You know, when the S is at or around 1 million contracts by this time, that things are usually pretty active out there. It's at about 963 right now. The ADV, 1.63 million. By the way, I forgot which one of our pro listeners was asking for an all kind of SPX questions answered show. I think we are going to do that coming up. So you may have gotten your wish. How nice are we here to just cater to all of the wishes of our pro listeners? We love you all out there. IWM, 302,000 contracts right now. So kind of a light day in small caps. That ADV has actually ticked up a little bit as well. It's back up over 700K. It's about 715 right now. If you want more small caps, we'll get into those a little bit later. On the big dog flavor, the rut variety coming up in a little bit on TWIFE. Let's get out to the single names out there. And this is kind of what I expected out here right now. Not a ton of paper lighting up the tape right now. Only cost you 196,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. I get you to Baba. Again, if it's under 200K, not a rock'em sock'em robots day, but it's also not, 120 or 130, something like that, which would be a very quiet day. So closing out 200K, that gets us to Baba. China, perhaps back in the headlines a little bit again, but then again, it's a day that ends in Y, so Chinese names are usually in the headlines. Baba off 5.3% or a little over 6 handles today, right around 110. So leading some of that charge to the downside today. Number 9, Bank of America. I haven't seen them in the top 10 in a while. For a long time, the old school symbol twins, the pre-meme symbol twins, so Boeing and Bank of America were always neck and neck in our top 10. These days, you're kind of hard-pressed to see either of them. Boeing, unless they crash a Skyliner, doesn't really make it in there anymore. And Bank of America, not usually either. But Bank of America off about 3% today, right around 41.75. Good for number 9, 210,000 contracts. Number 8, a perennial contender right now. It's Facebook, 224,000. I'm sorry, Meta Platforms Inc. That will never, that'll never pass my lips here. Meta Platforms, 224.5, off about 3 1/3, about 1.5% today. So giving back a little bit today. NEO, number 7. It's a day that ends in Y. You got to have some NEO out there. NEO, good for 235,000 contracts. Trading right around 20 3/4 right now, off 6.25% as well. So a rough day out there for NEO. Number 6, this is the name that's been popping up a little bit of late. After kind of being an also-ran for a while there after the dot-com madness. Micron back on a lot of people's radar right now, even though it's taken a little bit off today, off about 1 3/4%, or right around 77.80, off about $1.25 out there. It's good for number 6, though, right about exactly 250,000 contracts. That also shows you kind of how light it is today, listeners, when usually it costs you that much just to break into the top 10 today, if not more. And today that gets you all the way up to number 6. Number 5 is our old friend, frequent offender, NVIDIA. Now we're jumping up a bit. Now we're doing some paper, jumping up over 300,000 contracts. Number 5, NVIDIA, 570,000 contracts. Now we're getting there. Now we're getting a little bit more respectable. NVIDIA off a whopping 1/3% today. After whipping around quite a bit, 274 and change this morning, got up as high as 282. Wow. So almost exactly an 8-point range on the day. So that would translate into nearly 600,000 contracts, even though right now is kind of settling out around unch, but it's had quite the aggressive day out there. Number 4, the, returning king of the memes. They seem like they even got supplanted a little bit by other meme names for a while, but AMC back on everyone's radar. We were kind of joking about this on our Pro Q&A this week, it would seem on the surface to be ridiculous pairing of a gold miner and a theater chain, but that's the world we're living in, listeners. AMC coming off a little bit today, off about exactly 3%, or about $0.75, right around $25. Let's see, on the day, it's got as low as 23.38 and as high as 25.05. So it's had a little bit of a range out there today as well. Are you guys down with this whole investing in a gold miner for AMC? It just makes me laugh thinking about it, but that's where we are. 610,000 contracts. So who's not laughing at AMC right now? It's all the exchanges and brokers out there. They're loving it. They're like, keep up this madness, AMC. We love you. Number 3. Yes, I said number 3, Tesla. So Tesla getting kicked to the curb a little bit again today. Tesla good for 621,000 contracts. It's off, let's see, about 0.5% or $5. That's literally a rounding error in Tesla, listeners. This thing could move $100 at a clip, no problem. It's had a low today of, pretty much right close to right now, 1086, and it's got as high as $1,100. So not exactly active day at all for Tesla, given what we've seen out there. But it's good enough for number 3, even though it's kind of quiet, 621,000. Probably why Tesla's coming down a peg. Number 2, yes, I said number 2 is the fruit company. It's Apple. Only 861,000 contracts on the tape for Apple. It's at 176 and a little bit shy of a half, 176.40 or so right now, off about 0.75%. Started off the day 177.86, sold off hard to 175.69. Since then, it's been kind of bouncing around, trying to regain that level. Can't really do it. So a little bit of a sell-off out there today in Cupertino. And then number 1, listeners, I've joked many times this name is, they should almost just change the number 4 slot to this name because it is always there. It is AMD. But not today, listeners. Advanced Micro Devices, almost 1 million contracts, 918,000 contracts on the tape for AMD. Man, they're taking it on the chin, off 8% or 965, trading right around 109.5 right now. Started the day 116.09, and it's been kind of slowly, actually not that slowly, moving down ever since. Looks like Barclays downgraded them and cut their price target. You know how I feel about analyst downgrades, but still, it's taken the stock on quite the journey today. Good for 918,000 contracts here in AMD. Wow. So AMD topped out, looks like in November at 161.91, sold off down to 102 and change in January, rallied back up to 132 in February 9th. Then it sold off again to March 14th, back to 102, recently rallying up to 123.25, only to have this downgrade clip their wings again back to 109 and change right now. So it's been quite the topsy-turvy period for AMD. We're pretty much back at levels we haven't seen in AMD outside of the March and February lows, not since really later in 2021, about August of 2021 out there. So intriguing stuff. AMD lighting it up out there today. Let's see what's lighting it up from an earnings perspective. Like we said, we don't have a ton of names on the docket. We kind of are mid-cycle, if you will. And there are still some names popping off, obviously, and we do crunch the numbers for you because we like you. But kind of the official season, at least the way Matt and his analysts codify it over there, is 6 weeks. And that's how they break it down. So that's where the season report comes in, all that fun stuff. So we are waiting for new season reports for you. We do have some new move results reports, including one of my favorite tickers, the Walgreens Boots Alliance, hot off the presses right before showtime from our friends over there at Oratz. Walgreens Boots Alliance popping off today before the bell. They were at 47 and about a half bucks. They were pricing in about 4.6%, and they delivered 6% to the dark side. Let's see where they're hanging out right now. So a little bit of earnings outperformance there. Now they're still at about 44.87. So they're still right about that range, about 5.5% to the dark side. So they still have outperformed their straddle today, if ever so slightly. So there you go. Walgreens Boots Alliance popping off. We also had some hot names like UiPath Inc. ticker symbol Path after the bell last night here. Man, they were pricing in, they were at $29. They were pricing in 11%. They delivered 25% to the dark side. Wow. They're off 27% right now. This is the $21 stock. This is a software company out of Bucharest, Romania, if you're not familiar with it, listeners. In terms of upcoming earnings, we do have a fair number still on the docket here. You can go to theoptionsinsider.com to see the names that we have in store for you right now, including Levi Strauss. They are next week on the 6th after the bell. They were trading right around 20.60 as of this report. They were pricing in $1.25. In the past, they've moved 106. So a little bit extra jeans vol, even though it looks like Levi Strauss taking on the chin today. This report was from this morning at 20.60. They're already at 19.93. So they have sold off a little bit already out here. So if those names intrigue you, listeners, we've got the reports for you over there. Constellation Brands, too, really quick. Let's go out to them as well. Ticker symbol STZ. They're on the 7th before the bell next week. They're at 233, pretty much even as of the time of this report. They've sold off a little bit in the market today as well, about half a buck. They're pricing in 839. The past, they moved 828. So a wee bit of extra juice, a daub of extra juice, if you will, out here in Constellation Brands. And let's see, just a few others here. See if we can find any frequent offenders for the odd block here. Israeli software names, you name it, all kinds of fun stuff. Right now, we're hanging out for the last 3 years, pretty much, average together. We're hanging out at an average of 83% which is actually higher than it has been of late. Again, that kind of reflects the last couple of cycles doing a little bit more outperformance from a vol perspective than we have seen for pretty much the rest of the pandemic. As it stands right now, week 1 averages at 88%, week 2 an apocalyptic 44%. So do not buy vol in week 2 of earnings season, listeners. Week 3, 61%, week 4, 66%, week 5, 69%, week 6 also pretty rough, 53%. And thanks to the magic of week 1, that still averages out to about 83%. Of course, a lot of those is because of different numbers of names are reporting in different weeks, listeners. So interesting stuff here across the board. You can check that out for yourselves. Looking at some earnings trades as well. They are still monitoring 73 long straddles for your trading pleasure, 60 short straddles, and 102 long calendars on that earnings trade report. So you can see how they're all faring. Unfortunately, no short calendars this cycle, which is probably a relief for a lot of you because that trade tends to blow people's minds. Selling the longer term contract, buying the nearer terms, kind of crazy. But we can get there. Speaking of crazy, let's get to it, listeners. It is time to unleash the beast. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's get weird. Let's get wild. Let's get whimsical. It is time for the Odd Block. Let's see where our Eye of Sauron fixes its fiery gaze today. First off, this is a newcomer to the Odd Block. We kind of just really started talking about it recently on Options Oddities as well. This is a new name that I have heard of, the Rock Lobster had heard of. But neither of us really realized it was public until we saw it come across our screens on Oddities. It was kind of an interesting awakening for us. It was Turtle Beach. They make all those kind of high-priced gaming peripherals, usually on the audio side, so headsets and all that kind of stuff. Ticker symbol appropriately enough for a headphone manufacturer here, HEAR. Trading right now, $21.50. We had some interesting trades we profiled on them in Oddities. Let's look at the year that was out here, then we'll get to what's lighting it up today. Kind of a weird one today, which is appropriate for the Odd Block. We got, let's see, a year ago it was trading $26.67, so a wee bit higher than it is right now, right around $5. And then it rallied to its high for the year, not quite June 8th, listeners, but June 8th adjacent, June 14th, $38.70. And ever since then, it's been kind of a long, sordid tale to the dark side. It hit its low on actually March 15th, not 14th, of 1703. It got even a buck lower, 1703. And since then, it's had a nice little pop. It got up to about $22.50. That was earlier this week. And then the rest of this week, it's been selling off again back to where it is right now, $21.50. So actually up a little bit today. So that's kind of been the saga of Turtle Beach. And Mr. Rock Lobster, we got what looks like a weird one. First, what came on our radar was, it looked like a bit of a opening ratio vertical. We had the May 2330 vertical going up 2,500 times. Looks like paper buying the 23s for $2.04. That's an 80 vol, listeners. And then crushing through the bid. The bid was 35 cents. They sold them for 30 cents, 4,000. So not quite 1/2, but on a ratio there of the 30 calls. Again, for 30 cents, that's a 68 vol. And then it just seemed weird. So we thought, send it back to look, see if there was any other paper associated with that. And what it did find actually was at the same time, none of this marked spread, but it all went up at the same time. So it looks like a duck. It quacks like a duck. This we also saw, looks like paper selling 1,500 of the April 20 calls, and for, those were $2.16, and selling 1,000 of the June 20 calls for $3.66. A little bit off the bid there, so a little harder to tell there. Now, the vertical was opening on both legs. The other two, not so much, so it could be a closing of the 20s. And like I said, we just did recently break back through the 20 handle out there in Turtle Beach just a couple of weeks ago. So it could be getting through the 20s, dumping the 20. It is weird that they're dumping the Junes as well. So there looks like they could be dumping 1,500 of the April 20s, 1,000 of the June 20s, and then buying a 1x2 of the 2330 vertical, not quite 1x2, in May. So kind of splitting the uprights there between April and June. So kind of weird across the board, Mr. Rock Lobster. Is that your take as well? What's your spidey sense telling you about this weird four-way in Turtle Beach, sir?
A four-way. That'll keep you busy. So I think the April's probably closing. I checked that out because there's a low eye on the April. And I was trying to get the value there. So yeah, it looks like they probably bought the Aprils in early March, and they're pretty much getting out of them for what they paid for them. So that'd be like the April side. And then you go to the June, and the June is looking like some kind of funky, low-cost call spread. So they're buying the 23s and selling 30s. I saw that as an upside trade. So, they're doing a little ratio there. What I don't get is the June part. So I just say it's a little, let's just call it, let's say, okay, so you got the May 23.30, funky spread on top of the June 20s. What is that, like a funky buy ride, or like you buy the June 20s?
All sorts of weird here. I'm just trying to look up the June.
So,
yeah.
Like, I can't even tell if they want to be long or short, or even like credit neutral, like vol neutral, or just because they're long 1,000 of the 20s. So my guess is, on the 30s, they did extra 30s maybe to cover some margin, maybe because they're doing 1,000 over 2,500, which would give you the 20s, for about, a little bit of a credit, right? And then they just piled on the 30 calls for a margin control. But the 30 calls kind of went through the bid. So again, all kinds of
weird
oddball city.
Look, I'm looking here. You're right. The Junes went up on March 14th as part of a spread. Looks like this guy's been kind of buying upside in Turtle Beach for a while and then maybe rolling it down when the opportunity took, because he took off on the 14th, 1,500 of the March 24 calls for a dime. So I'm guessing those are probably a loser, Mr. Rock Lobster. And then he bought 1,000, so he also bought less. That's also a sign he's not sitting on house money. He bought 1,000 of the June 20s for $255. So he made money on those. He dumped those for $366. So I'm still guessing this guy is probably down some money because looks like he's been buying calls into the sell-off for a while.
Yeah, and so I think maybe the June's close, April's close. You did a good job of sleuthing there. And then he's going to try the 23.30 spread for some kind, trying to get some low cost there to make his money back.
I guess it's kind of a quasi-stock repair at that point. He doesn't mind letting some go at the 30 handle, I guess. Yeah, this is the weird one, which is, hey, that's what the segment's for, right, listeners? The oddities.
They don't call it the not odd block.
The not odd block. Oddities, different show. Yes. Oddities. Yes. Odd block indeed. A lot of oddness. What do you think about this one? So we talked about Turtle Beach before, not on this show, really only for our pro members, but you have thoughts on Turtle Beach? You like it at these levels? You like what this guy's been doing? Throwing good money after bad for calls for a while? Hit us up. Let us know as we get into some, let's do some payback now. Let's get some of the odd block payback. Let's see if some of these trades we profiled have paid off or not. Let's see. Let's start in Uncle Mike's favorite name. This is Technip FMC PLC. This is the old French-American UK domiciled global oil and gas company. Technip FMC PLC. Gotta love that. I won't tell you where it's trading right now. A bit of a spoiler. But back on March 7th, we profiled. Looks like somebody had a little bit of an axe to grind. This one said, you know what? This thing is not going to be moving too much farther for the rest of this month. So I'm going to take advantage of some pretty decent juice, 95 vol level. And I'm going to come in and not quite crush that bid, but get pretty close to it. Sell almost 10,000, 9,054 47 cents out there. Again, that's a 95 vol, listeners. The stock was a little bit over $8 at the time, 804. There were no earnings in sight. It was what it looked like, just a straight up chance to harvest a little bit of the old risk premium. At the time, we said we didn't really hate the vol levels on this trade. You can't argue against almost triple-digit vol for only a few weeks. And it looks like, Mr. Uncle Mike, that this one actually kind of paid off. The stock closed at $7.30 on expiration, and these bad boys were still open. So they pocketed a whopping $425,000, even higher than the Rock Lobster's metric of the girlfriend's Ferrari. Mr. Uncle Mike, what say you, sir? Are you a fan of these? I know you like yourself a call writer, too. Are you a fan of these aggressive call rights in Technip FMC PLC?
Not against an aggressive call right, but I can't really speak clearly on Technip FNC PNC, though.
You assume I can, sir? You think I'm well-versed in Technip FMC PLC? That's why I tossed to you, sir, for all the fun. Mr. Rock Lobster, do you concur that this was, we kind of liked it at the time, I recall. You can't hate these vol levels, and it seems like he got what he wanted, which was $425,000, sir.
No, I thought that, I mean, this wasn't bad, right? Like oil services, the return was pretty good. You know, like 5% return or whatever. Like, how are you going to get upset about that? You know, I would say that, you know, hey, listen, a trade that makes you $425,000, you can complain about a lot worse things.
Yes,
you know, like
definitely.
You go to Portillo's and they don't give you, you know, they forgot your peppers or something. Like that, that's something you can complain about. $425,000. I don't know. I don't think you can complain about that.
I probably would complain about that if it got no peppers. You're right. That would be
100%. You'd be very upset.
That's a core component of the Chicago dog. Got to have that pepper on it. And a pickle. It's kind of like a salad on a bun. It's kind of crazy, but it's fun.
And you know what's funny about those peppers? You can't put them on anything else.
They are kind
Where else are you putting them?
They are kind of suited just to that. You're right. They are single-use peppers. Our chat reminding us they also liked the Turtle Beach. It was the 17 half puts we were talking about in Turtle Beach. You recall those, Mr. Rock Lobster? There was a ton of put action out there. And I think, as I recall, someone was actually buying those bad boys because they thought this thing was going to just explode to nothing. And we were like, why is this person doing this? So, yeah, they were kind of interesting. Now we have the other side of that paper, which is the loading up on the upside. Let's go on out now to one more name here. Let's see if we can catch Uncle Mike napping again. Let's go out first to everyone's favorite name, the Owl. AKA Blue Owl Capital Inc., ticker symbol OWL. This goes back to our February 17th show. You remember those days, listeners? February 17th, pre-Ukrainian invasion. We were all just young and whimsical. Now we're jaded and angry and old. But at the time, we talked about Blue Owl. It was right after earnings on this name. It was the same day. So this is the post-earnings trade. Someone coming in and dumping. Oh, before I do that really quick rundown on Blue Owl. Let's see. Today, I won't tell you where they're trading today. $9.88 a year ago, and then they topped out at $17.89 on November 2nd before pretty much selling off for the rest of the year. When we profiled this on February 17th, the stock was at $12.50. Someone came in and just said, you know what? I'm going to play right there. The 12 half strike sounds good to me. I'm going to buy 5,001 of the 12 half calls in March for 70 cents. Kind of the flip of the other trade we just talked about. They paid a 65 vol for these. And as we are wont to do, I think we were a little skeptical of straight up at the money call buys, especially for a decent amount of vol. But it was post earnings. Also, if you buy in premium immediately post earnings, you got to be careful because you could easily catch that falling knife. If you don't get the right moment where the vol is still imploding, you got to wait till it really has squeezed out all the excess juice. If you buy it before then, you're kind of going to be left holding the bag. And looks like this one kind of worked out for them. Not quite, but they got some of the move they wanted. The stock closed at $12.83 on expiration, listeners. So unfortunately, they ended up losing 37 cents on this deal. So not quite the mad bonanza of call profits. So that's about $1.85 or so, listeners. So they lost almost a girlfriend's Ferrari or significant other's Ferrari out there. Mr. Uncle Mike, I'm assuming you like these post-earnings calls in OWL a little bit less than our previous trade, sir?
I like everything. No, I think that if they're bullish, why not buy some calls? But I'm typically more of a spread kind of guy in situations like that, though. Even in Blue Owl, if I owned it.
Even in the Owl? Wow. That's saying a lot, sir. Yeah, this is definitely a situation where a spread would have come in handy. It would have pretty much maybe made this close to a break-even trade at that point. This was just a bit of a bridge too far. If you are going to do this kind of aggressive trade, listeners, maybe you do have a spread leg against it, as we've always advocated. But hey, it didn't work out. He didn't lose all his money, but he lost a fair amount of it, listeners, as we keep on rolling. It is time to see now what you folks have on your brain. Are you winning? Are you losing? Are you making money? Hopefully you are. Let's find out. It is time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, let's dance. Let's talk about our question of the week first. Let's see how that is unfolding. We're asking you right now, the recent drama in VXX, if you listen to Vol Views or this show, you know what the heck we're talking about. It has focused the spotlight back on volatility product meltdown. So I thought we'd ask you folks, which vol product implosion or failure or drama has had the greatest impact on the overall vol market? We gave you 4 choices. The great SVXY neutering, the 2018 death of XIV, the Vixx disaster of 2012, or what is currently ongoing right now with VXX. Call it what you will. Let's go back to the Rock Lobster, sir. Mr. Rock Lobster, what is your choice? And what do you think our audience is voting for here of the great vol meltdown, sir?
I think the XIV was the worst, personally, because just the whole product just went away. Like, okay, how many product doesn't exist anymore? So I think that's what the listeners want with death of XIV.
Interesting, Mr. Uncle Mike. Do you concur, sir, or do you have a crazy out of left field suggestion?
No, I'm definitely on the XIV camp. I just remember going through that, and like I was saying on Monday's show, the fact that I'm getting calls from clients from their other trading account at times or their friend's trading account and things like that. To me, that was the one that most impacted me. And from what I can tell, I would go with that. And I would believe the audience would as well.
Yeah, the audience are no fools. They are going with that one as well. Just ticking as we're talking, up to almost 70% right now choosing the death of XIV. So it's a pretty firm majority for that one, followed by a distant number 2, the ongoing VXX drama, 17.5%, and then the Vixx disaster closing in on 9%, and the great SVXY neutering, even though he put the great in there, only about 4% for that one. So if you don't agree with those votes, you have a different opinion, you want to just reaffirm your opinion on this, you think XIV was a bad deal, at Options, the place to go on Twitter, listeners. You got about a day, so the clock is ticking. But listen on the podcast, you will have an opportunity to play along. If you're waiting for like Vol Views podcast tomorrow, something like that, probably will be done by then. So don't wait too long, listeners. All right, let's see. Let's go out here to Uncle Mike. There's a fun and or challenging question for you because you have to kind of pick amongst your children. This comes from EZT or maybe EZT. Let's go with EZT. It sounds fun. He says, what is Uncle Mike's favorite strategy block of all times? Mr. Uncle Mike, you've done a few of them. I haven't counted up how many, but quite a few. Can you possibly choose a favorite? Or maybe, sir, maybe I'll make your life a little easier. This is outside the scope of Mr. EZ's question, but maybe if you have to do like a top 5, I'll allow it, sir.
I would say my favorite one, first off, I just thought of something. You down with EZT? Yeah, you know me. But I would say my favorite one, I think Andrew was even on the show the day I did it, is when I forget when I did it, but it was probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I did the 12 Days of Christmas I sang it, and it was based on option trading rules, I think. That was probably my favorite one. And what's funny is that just came to me like 5 minutes before the strategy block. I had no plans of doing it. I just had an idea like 5 minutes beforehand, wrote it out real quick, and then it all happened. So that was probably my favorite one because it felt like I was inspired on that one.
The singing Uncle Mike. I'm going to have to go back and recut and remaster that one so all of our listeners, the new listeners, can enjoy it as well. I don't know. You got more singing in you in the future, Uncle Mike, or is that like a one and done?
One and done.
So there you go, Mr. EZT. I thought he was going to maybe answer one of his rants or something. It has been some epic rants over the years, but no, he threw a bit of a curveball at us with the singing 12 Days of Christmas episode. I'll have to go dig that one up and have to repurpose it for you folks out there. Maybe you get him to sing for you on his YouTube channel, listeners. So we shall see. Here's kind of a generic question. We get a lot like this all the time. This one happens to come from Max. He wants to know, where do you see the best opportunities for covered calls right now? So again, kind of a broad question that it covers the entire purview and scope of the marketplace. It could be commodities. It could be, maybe we'll go down that road. Maybe we'll talk about like sectors, something like that may be more intriguing. Could be vol products, could be indexes. So maybe we'll start with you, Mr. Rock Lobster. If there's anything that's really leaping off the page at you right now, like, hey, this is an interesting sector that is intriguing me for its comparative levels of juice for covered calls, for Mr. Max, have at it, sir.
I think the oil stocks get the divvies, and you get pretty relatively nice premiums right now for those. So I would say, yeah, oil stocks, exploration companies, stuff like that. So I just sell puts in them until they give me the stock, but which is essentially the same thing. But I think, yeah, there's definitely. You have to think about it as. Nobody wants to buy oil from the Russians anymore. They want to buy it from some other people. So I think there's a little bit of built-in implied demand on that side for a little while.
Mr. Uncle Mike, do you have any thoughts? Do you concur with that? Do you have a different area that is attracting your attention right now from a covered call perspective, sir? Maybe you could sing it for us.
Don't have the ability to sing it, but no, I like I literally was monitoring my covered call position for one of my clients on XLE before the show. I mean, I like it on there. One of the stocks that we're holding in our triple income fund is Chevron. So I agree with the Rock Lobster on this, just because even if they go down, they're still high quality stocks. You're getting a dividend on them, and premium's kind of nice.
There you go. 2 votes there for the oil and oil services stocks. Listen, by the way, I did pull up really quickly what we were talking about on oddities, give you a little bit of a premium show preview here, listeners, for the Turtle Beach. It was back on December 17th on our show there. We talked about people throwing good money after bad in Turtle Beach puts. This was, as I recall, I remember them buying some downside puts. They had already bought the D's 22 puts, and those had gone the way of the dodo. And then they came back in at 7,500 times. They bought 7,700 more of the Jan 17 half puts. They paid 35 cents for those. I just broke down the tail of the tape for you the last couple of months, listeners. You probably can tell they did not work out very well. So they had lost about $250,000 in the first trade, and they wasted another $250,000 on the second trade. So sounds like this person may be diametrically opposed to what the other person was doing, which is buying all the calls. I don't think these were related trades. It wasn't like they were buying a strangle. It just seemed like someone was really panicking about a lot of downside in Turtle Beach, and they spent about $500,000 to express that view, and including very, very near-term 17 half puts. That was already kind of at the low for the year for the stock, and they were just scrambling. A 97 vol. It seemed like wasted money to us at the time, and it turned out to be the case. But you know what's never wasted time, listeners? It's the Around the Block. So here we go.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
We got some of our listeners in our chat saying they liked that trade as well because they sold those puts, the Jan 17 half puts. I remember some of our listeners liking us profiling that. We like to give you some guys interesting targets, and that one certainly seemed like a decent one. So congrats to all of you in our secret club who did sell those Jan 17 half puts. It worked out pretty well for you folks. Not so much for this guy, but glad our listeners did well here. But, you know, Uncle Mike, he's been kind of champing at the bit. He was teasing his Around the Block at the start of the show. So I don't know. I guess he was just eager for the show to be done the entire time. So let's let him have it now. The floor is yours, Mr. Uncle Mike. What is your Around the Block?
Let me think. Non-farm payrolls. I think that could be a market mover tomorrow. Definitely looking at that. 4,600 on the S&P. We broke through it to the upside, but now we're having a hard time breaking through it again. So watching 4,600 non-farm and seeing as well as how the 10-year is going to react to the announcement tomorrow that I'll be waiting with bated breath at 7:30 tomorrow morning, Chicago time, when it comes out.
Are you back on said boat with the 10-year note, sir?
I never got off the boat from the 10-year note. Even if I'm not on the boat, I'm on the boat.
You live on that boat. You have a timeshare that never expires on the boat with the 10-year. No, speaking of 10-year fun, I do believe you're going to have, he loves all things macro. I do believe you're going to have a return of the Viceroy sometime soon in the pro Q&As. We kind of invoked him when we sent up the Viceroy signal when we started talking about cheap stocks, and he answered. So he will be back to answer your questions soon for all of you cool cats in the pro Q&A hot seat. That's always a fun one. Maybe Mr. Uncle Mike will want to get in there, ask some questions. He loves himself, the Viceroy. All right, Mr. Rock Lobster, what is on your radar for the rest of this week through the weekend, sir?
I've got we're trying to see what this end of the quarter, this non-farm payroll. I think this could be what's keeping the vol bid. What's making the market a little uneasy, like if it's a smashing number, they're going to be raising rates and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. So I think there's really a little bit of trepidation around that. Yeah, and I'm looking at oil stocks. Joe's releasing 180 million barrels over the next 6 months. So that's a million barrels per day, which is probably 20 cents a gallon. Is that going to do much? I don't think so. And since every oil stock in the world is up today, so again, I still like that long oil trade. I haven't sold any of my oil stocks yet, so what the heck? So that's another one where, again, if you want to do some income premium harvesting or something like that, might not be a bad place to go check that out.
Check that out. If you want more oil talk, listeners, just stay tuned. If you're in the Secret Club, you get some fun stuff in the live chat. We'll be back in exactly half an hour with the one and only Dan Gramza to break down all that action. What's cooking in the land of OPEC and all this fun. What's going on from a crude oil options perspective. I got a feeling we'll be talking about that and a whole bunch more. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Let's start with the Uncle List of Mikes. I think he's done with his lunch now. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if you could grace us with your presence one final time. If folks want to reach out to you, maybe they want you to sing them a little something. Where should they go? What should they do?
A couple places. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW. If you're looking for a financial advisor who delves in the option product, if it's appropriate for the client, of course, feel free to check out my website, stcharleswealth.com. Or you can check out my YouTube videos, putting out one a week this year. That's the goal. Just type in St. Charles Wealth Management, and you'll see some of those videos.
How about we have a new deal? Anyone agrees to become a new Uncle Mike customer or client, you create compose a custom song for them. What do you think, huh?
I've never been much of a singer, and I think this is the only recorded venue I've ever sang on when I did it 7 or 8 years ago or whatever that was.
That's what makes it so special, so unique. Only for Uncle Mike clients at stcharleswealth.com. He won't say it. I will say it for him. I personally guarantee he will compose a custom song for you if you become an Uncle Mike client today. stcharleswealth.com. See, your compliance can't get mad about that. It's just a song. You're not giving away any secrets. All right, Mr. Rock Lobster, I don't know, maybe if they call Ted, will you sing a song for them as well, sir?
You got to sing the song of, yes, Andrew is the most handsome man in options, and you get 10% off optionsbid.com if you call Ted 888-TRADE-01. There you go.
888-TRADE-01. He did misspeak a little bit, though. It's not Andrew. It is myself, and I, who is the sexiest man. I mean, it's an official title. I can't really argue with. I forgot I am still the Lord of Options. Well, I do have that official certificate hanging on my wall in the studio here. I am an official Lord. So multiple titles to enjoy here in the options market. In the meantime, you can call Ted over there in the land of the pit, optionpit.com, to learn more. We got to get on out of here, but don't worry. Our day's just getting started, listeners. We'll be back with Twifo in a little bit and all sorts of fun. Then, of course, back again tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for volatility views. And then after that, for all you cool kids, you like hearing about those Turtle Beach puts and everything else we were profiling in the oddities, you know where you got to go, theoptionsinsider.com/secret club to join up, and you can join all the fun. And you can also get in there for the March giveaway because it's popping off really soon. So you want to be part of that. Trust me. This is unique, bespoke, one-of-a-kind stuff. Nobody else is really doing anything like this, which makes it kind of fun. We like you folks out there. And we'll see you back here again on Monday, another episode of The Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.